Welcome to RetroLogic, episode 53. I'm Dan Caparello here with John Cummins and Sam Wagers, and you're listening to the most raccoon-infested gaming podcast on the internet. But RetroLogic isn't just a podcast, it's also a retro game store. Visit retrologic.games to check out our growing inventory of clean, tested, and authentic retro games, fair trade fabric, t-shirts, holographic stickers, and join our 100% non-toxic Discord community for even more fun. F-U-N fun. Guys, how's it going? What's going on?
Not a whole lot. Just still working, trying to find time to game.
Not a whole lot, guys. We have a new Metroid in our midst, so hopefully there's some of that going on.
Mm-hmm. I wish there was more of that going on.
Yes.
I don't know what this work you're talking about is.
Saturday, Sunday, Metroid Day. It's Columbus Day.
You mean you don't get that holiday off?
No, I get Martin Luther off instead.
I'm a contractor, so I don't get any days off, but.
Yep.
So just a little bit of housekeeping before we jump into the podcast. We have a Patreon. Join the Patreon for the $1 a month tier is open right now, and you can have access to all of the current and future video content that I'm going to be creating. Right now, we just have a little update video up there right now, but by the end of October, I have set a goal for myself to put out the first video, which is about Space Station Silicon Valley. It's going to be vloggy and fun, and you're going to love it. So just go check it out. Give me $1, and I will give you, in exchange, videos.
It's only $1.
It's only $1.
Did you guys hear about do you guys have Dollar Trees there?
Yeah.
Yeah, did you hear they're going to start increasing the price of their goods?
Yeah.
It's not going to be just
There's
$1
no real
anymore.
dollar store anymore.
No. Yeah, Dollar Store's going away, but the Patreon's $1.
Is it going to be like $2 store? Oh, that's right, man. We're the last dollar store.
Yes.
Get in on the ground floor of this, because it's going to go up. So, once more tiers open up. But for now, it's just $1. We have Ploktober happening. Plok Talk episode 2 is scheduled for October 25th at 9 p.m. There's going to be a sign-up sheet in the Discord. If you want to be part of it, I will ping you when that is ready. Our own Sam Wagers is going to be hosting it. He has played and beaten the whole game. So if you have any questions,
I think he's the only person to ever do it.
There's in the whole
The
world?
only person ever.
Yeah,
Me and Andross's mom.
And Andross's mom.
That's what he claims, or at least what she claimed. She told him that she beat it, so...
Well, moms have a lot of
believe it.
time sometimes when the kids are, I don't know.
Well, she didn't stream hers, so I don't know.
Right? Is there proof? We don't know.
I actually didn't stream mine, but I did record it.
Oh, I thought you did.
Well, I streamed it, and I failed. And then I played it again, and I made sure I recorded it, but I wasn't live.
Did you end up posting that anywhere?
I did. Yeah, it's on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, there you go.
Still.
Gotta
So
be.
you have proof.
Plok the complete Plok through.
There's also Plok through. There's also a Keep Nintendo Weird episode from the guys over at All In that you can go listen to with an interview with the titular Andross that we were just talking about, including a rap song that I wrote in there. So if you want to hear me rapping about Plok, then definitely go listen to that. And there's also Sam, who's featured giving a very enthusiastic speech about,
despite having a cold at the time.
Yeah, you did. That was fantastic. It sounded amazing. So go listen to all that on the Keep Nintendo Weird podcast. Also videos for all that on YouTube and stuff. The Nintendo Pals, also Andross. They're going to be streaming some Plok. He did a little bit of it, I think. So he's going to be doing more of that this month. And don't forget to sign up for Plok Talk. I'll ping you when that's up. Also, we have a new article coming this week from the blog, the RetroLogic blog, which is at retrologic.games/blog. Sam, what is this new thing?
So this is a follow-up to my previous article on the Nintendo Switch Online and the sort of the market for retro games on the Switch, taking all that together and comparing it to the Virtual Console on the Wii, the Wii U, and the 3DS. This actually breaks it down by platform, the original platform. So kind of looking at how how many Game Boy games there were on the 3DS versus what we have on the Switch, how many N64 games, etc., and how that's kind of changed. And you spot some interesting trends when you start to lay all that out. So it's worth a look.
The first one was very detailed and interesting. It was a really good read, so I'm looking forward to this new one. I think it's going to drop Thursday.
Yep. It should be ready to go by then. Basically, all this comes from a giant list that I made, which I included some of that relevant additional information, like the original platform, the publisher, developer, and making some charts out of that, and then just analyzing it a little bit, noticing some trends, commenting on those trends. So if that interests you at all, you can find that at the blog, retrologic.games/blog.
Very cool. And thanks to everyone who's been checking the blog out. We had a nice little boost of traffic over there recently. And Sam's been killing it with the content. So thank you, guys. Let's hit our icebreaker for this week, guys. What did y'all buy? What did y'all play? Seems like we all kind of had a nice little week of pickups. So what's going on with that? Sam, why don't you go first? Actually, John, why don't you go first? Sam just talked, trying to mix it up.
So, like everybody else, I bought Metroid Dread, and I bought the collector's edition, and it came on Friday, but I really wanted to play it with the Switch OLED, but mine did not make it until Saturday, so I didn't start this game up until last night, because I ended up being really busy Saturday and most of Sunday. But I did finally get some time into it, and then I had a package that I thought was going to be my Switch OLED, because I didn't look at the tracking very well, but it ended up being some games that Eric Plunk picked up for me. So I got a complete inbox Clayfighter for the Super Nintendo.
Good old Eric.
And I got a copy of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles back from the sewers for the Game Boy complete inbox. And these things were super nice. The Game Boy game even had the old plastic style packaging before they went to the cardboard. Like it was, these are super good. Even had like the advertisements and stuff still in them. But yeah, it was one of those similar to your deal where he posted a picture of some stuff that was at the game store that is local to him, or I think it's somewhat local, like half hour away is what he was saying.
Yeah, it's not his usual spot, but he's like, usually they don't price stuff very accurately. Oh, no. So
yeah, I got great deals on these games. Yeah. So he showed a bunch of pictures, and those are two games that kind of caught my attention really quick that were in like an unbelievable price range. Like I couldn't believe how cheap they were. So I went ahead and picked them up. And I also picked up Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, after we talked about it on the show. I haven't played this game in for like the very little bits here and there, and it's been a very long time. So I'd like to, actually this is 2. I picked up 2 because I plan on picking up 1 on the Switch, playing through it, and then trying to hop into this at some point. And I also picked up Capcom Fighting Evolution for the Xbox. I don't think I'd ever seen this game before.
It's a good one.
This one totally escaped my my knowledge of games. Like I didn't even know it existed. I just was browsing through the store and seeing it, and I was like, gotta get that. I have a lot of Street Fighter games. Gotta add that one to it. That same store had a copy of Rygar for the NES.
Yes.
I didn't have a copy of that, so
classic, man.
They wanted like asking price for it of like its actual value, but I let it go because it was the actual 5-screw version of it.
Oh, nice. So I was
like, anytime I find those, I go ahead and pick them up.
Yeah, totally.
Because they're harder to get.
Mm-hmm.
And then last thing I picked up was a copy of Tales of the Abyss for the 3DS.
Sweet.
This is like one of the few Tales games that I didn't have. I did because I didn't get it on the PS2 because I didn't have a PS2.
Mm-hmm.
And then when this re-release came out, I never bought it new. And then it shot up in price. And then just got lucky at the local here, and they had it for like $18, which is way under its value.
Gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah. That store that's what I was telling you. Next time you guys go to Tulsa, there's a handful of them there. vintage stocks, and they just, I think the problem is that they have so much inventory because they do comic books, they do movies, they do CDs, they do albums, like they do the whole gamut. So I think they struggle to keep their full inventory like priced.
Easy for stuff to get lost.
Time. Oh yeah. I find stuff like they'll usually have a date on the sticker. Like I'll find games that haven't been adjusted in like 2 years.
Speaking of Tulsa, we might be going to Tulsa in the next couple months. And if we do, we might have to do a little RetroLogic reunion.
Yes,
because it seems like a bunch of the community is kind of like within a couple hours drive of Tulsa. So
same, you'll have to drive to Tulsa. It's probably further away from.
It's probably more than just a couple hours.
If you drive to Tulsa,
it's a short flight.
You can just drive to my town before you get there.
Yeah, we'll miss you, Sam.
So, as far as playing games, other than testing out some of the stuff that I bought, I actually put a little bit of time I had into a Game Pass game called Recore that, again, I don't think I ever even heard of it. It came out in 2016 for the Xbox One. It wouldn't have even been on my radar because I didn't have an Xbox One until 2018, 2019. I bought one for my son. So we were totally...
But it was an early game. It was an early game, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally oblivious to Xbox exclusives. But I was just kind of looking. I hadn't been on Game Pass in a while, and just kind of scouring after I picked up Spore from there and played a little bit of it. And that game kind of caught my attention, and I did some research on it. Found out it was some of the same people that worked on Metroid Prime series, and just a few other notable things that they worked on. So I was like, well, I'll try it out. And it's actually a pretty fun little shooter. Like, I guess it's more like an adventure game, kind of like Metroid. You do puzzle solving and collecting and exploring things. So, but the core gameplay loop's pretty fun. You kind of collect cores from the enemies. You have like it's kind of like a grappling hook. You have to weaken the enemy, and then you can shoot your grappling hook out, grab the core, and then it's a kind of like a tug of war. You have to let off so you don't break the cable when you're trying to extract. So you have to kind of pull when the cable turns normal color, and when it turns red, you have to let off or it'll break.
It's a fishing sim.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just like fishing.
It's like Pokemon mixed with fishing, mixed with Metroid.
But like the Metroid aspect of it's like the Metroid Prime aspect where like you have to use different versions of the cannon in order to kill certain enemies. Like they're kind of color coded. And that's what happens in this game too. You unlock different ammunition for your gun that's different colors that corresponds to enemies that are different colors. So if you have the red enemies appear, you use the red ammo to weaken them faster to get their cores removed. And then there's like a crafting element that's thrown in there too that you can choose. Kind of makes you choose whether you want to strip a unit of its core or just totally destroy it, because you get parts if you destroy them. So I don't know. It was a fun little. I played probably 2 or 3 hours of that.
Nice.
So it was nice to actually get some game time and just randomly pick something up.
I remember it looking cool. I thought about just getting it on disc because it's like $5 on disc just to have.
Yeah.
When someday the Xbox One Xbox One is retro, and I'll pick one of those up for nothing.
I don't know if that's going to be like. I thought about picking it up on disc, but I guarantee it has like a day one download patch like that you'll have to download. So like even if you buy it physically, anything Xbox One and up, like Xbox One, PS4.
Yeah, you're right.
Anything you buy on a disc is going to have a download of some kind. So I don't know.
Yeah, unfortunately,
I wanted just to have it on my shelf because it's so cheap, but I don't plan on holding on to it for that reason. Because I don't know. I guess you could rip it to a hard drive with the patch already like on it.
True that.
But yeah, you definitely can't not have it. If your hard drive fails, you're done.
Recore on Game Pass a while ago. It was pretty fun. It didn't really hold my interest long enough that I would actually beat it, but it's worth checking out.
Yeah. And The only other thing I played was a couple hours of Dread on last night, and I made it to
no spoilers.
Well, it's not a spoiler. I made it to the first actual boss.
There's bosses?
Boss. Yes, can't believe there's bosses in Metroid. It's unbelievable. Never happened before. But no, that game is like, I know it's a 2D game, but I think it's the best looking game on the Switch. Like, as far as how smooth it runs and how detailed and all the textures and everything, like the lighting is amazing. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it has better lighting than Luigi's Mansion even.
And they use it to good effect too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, just walking through some of the areas that have different backgrounds and watching like the reflections of the light off of everything and just the creatures. And like I said, it's in short bursts, but because you also have the drab background most of the time of Metroid. But
right, yeah.
When they do show it off, it is like amazing how well it looks, especially with the OLED screen.
Oh, I bet with that screen it looks incredible.
Yes. It was well worth the wait.
Sweet. Awesome. Sam, what about you, dude? Bought and played.
Yeah, I also picked up Metroid Dread twice, as it turns out. I had a pre-order from Amazon because I often, I just like the convenience of having stuff delivered and, shipping's free, whatever. But they delivered it to the wrong place, actually to my next door neighbor. Now, what was confusing about that, because I eventually identified, because they showed a picture and I'm like, oh, that's their house over here. And then I look, it's not on the porch anymore. So I'm like, oh, did they just take it? Like, what was... But they weren't home, as it turns out. And I'm like, oh, well, I can't even talk to them about this. This is a bummer. But as it turns out, my other neighbor, a couple more doors down, was receiving their mail, was picking up their mail for them while they were out of town. And then she stopped by Sunday afternoon, like, oh, I just noticed this package is for you. So here it is. And I'm like, oh, thanks. So in the meantime, I'd already gone out and bought a copy of Dread because I was kind of tired of waiting and I wasn't sure I was ever going to get my package.
Yeah.
So now I have 2 copies of Dread.
I don't blame you for that.
I can probably return the one, or I can find somewhere to sell it, take it, give it away.
Yeah.
I'll figure out what to do with it. But
okay, cool.
Yeah. In the meantime, when I was doing that, Friday night, because I didn't have Metroid Dread, to scratch that Metroidvania itch, I played some Castlevania Circle of the Moon on the collection on Switch, which I didn't realize I remembered as much of that game as I did, because I was like, I knew where to go, and I was like, wow, this... And I was going through the game a lot faster because I wasn't lost for as much. One thing to note about the collection, too, is that will actually tell... It has a setting. You can turn it off if you're a purist, I guess. But it does have a setting that is enabled by default, which will tell you which bosses drop DSS cards when you attack them. So that's really handy if you're playing through that game, especially for the first time, because not knowing that, because that's kind of the frustrating thing, is... If you want 100% completion, or if you just like experimenting with all the abilities you can have, you're going to want to collect all of those, but most of the enemies in the game don't drop them. It's only specific ones. And if you don't know the specific ones that drop them, you're going to waste a lot of time, because the drop rate's really low for most of them. And you're just going to be like killing the same enemy over and over, even when you know which one it is. If you don't know, then I don't know how you 100% the game.
This is where Bloodstain Ritual of the Night got their mechanic, right?
That's probably closer to Area of Sorrow.
I guess. Souls. Yeah.
Because every enemy in that game has
drop
a soul drop, which can do something. Some of them are a bit redundant or just not good, but all of them have an ability you can acquire from them, which is awesome. But this was kind of the start of that, at the very least.
It was building towards it.
And in this case, there's 2 sets of cards, and depending which 2 you pair together, you have a different ability. and they kind of like coordinate in themes. Like the first, I think it's Mercury. The first ones you're always going to get because the drop rate's super high from enemies at the start of the game are Mercury and Salamander. And like the Mercury pairs all do something with your basic whip attack. Like they add an element to it, and it'll usually do more damage. So Salamander makes it a fire whip. But then if you get like the Jupiter card with Salamander, that makes fireballs circle you, because that's like Jupiter's thing, is it gives you these shield things that circle you. So it's a lot of fun doing all that. Castlevania Circle of the Moon's pretty awesome still.
Rad.
But when I went out to look for a copy of Dread, I went to a local store called Play It Games, Movies, and Music here in Columbus. Kind of a little far away from me, but really not too far. So close enough I'll go back. Because they sold current games. They sell a lot of stuff. I mean, it's in the title. They sell movies and music too. But they had a pretty good selection. I mean, they actually had Game Gear games, which I haven't been seeing a lot of places. I mean, like, all of them were sports games or Sonic 2, but they had Game Gear games.
That's par for the course.
They had a little bit of everything, you know, not a lot of GameCube stuff, but they had GameCube stuff, you know. And while I was there, I picked up Dread. I also picked up a copy of Metroid Prime Hunters, the demo cart. I guess this came with DSs at some point.
Yes,
I didn't even know this was a thing.
Came with launch DSs, and it's very different from how Hunters actually ended up. And actually,
I haven't played Hunters.
Yeah, so I actually like the control scheme on the demo better than what they ended up with on the.
If I like this, I may have to check out Hunters.
Yeah, Hunters is pretty good. It's not bad for it came out after Prime to kind of like capitalize on the popularity of it. So it's a first-person shooter on the DS. So your mileage may vary.
Have to get the little thumb,
especially. Well, yeah, you can do that. I just used a stylus, but your mileage may vary. Like these days, it's probably not great.
I mean,
to go back,
my mileage varies at first-person shooter.
Yeah, so. That's true too. So, but like the different types of hunters you can be is cool. You don't have to be Samus. You can be a different hunter, and it is very interesting. So I recommend it. I don't think it's very expensive.
Yeah, no, it's not. And this was $5 for the cart. This was just like they had a box of like $5 and under DS games.
Oh yeah,
at the front of the register. Demo's super
so I
was
cheap.
Just kind of sifting through them.
And actually, finding the little cardboard that the demo came in is harder than finding the game. Like it's like pretty expensive.
So I also on the DS picked up Contra 4 for the DS, which I have heard good things about, and I've been on a Contra kick recently, and it was relatively cheap as well. I think like $11 is what I paid for it. And the only other thing I'd been playing was actually on stream, Castlevania Dracula X. So that was a first-time playthrough for me. There were some difficulties. I gave in and used save states because the last boss fight against Dracula in that game is a real trial of patience, where one mistake will lead to instant death because it all takes place with some pillars with bottomless pits in between them. So getting hit by an attack will often knock you into those pits. You will die, which kind of stinks.
Wow.
Other than that, it's a pretty solid Castlevania game. I mean, if you're getting into Castlevania, play Super Castlevania 4 first, but you can do worse than Dracula X, I guess.
All right. Good deal. Thanks, Sam. And then me. So I went on a bit of a weird like action figure spree lately. I don't know what got into me. I also picked up Metroid Dread. My copy got here today. If you're listening to this, it's Monday, and it came out 3 days ago. So I have been avoiding spoilers like the plague, and I'm started it spoiler free. So I feel really good about that. And I mean, the first hour I played totally blew me away. I am in love with Samus all over again, and it's smooth as butter. I don't have an OLED screen, but it still looks incredible. So, yeah. So that's that. Collector's Edition is amazing. Amiibo's great. Nothing but good things to say about it. So my figures. So there was a series of 9-inch tall Sonic the Hedgehog figures that came out in like 2001, 2002, something like that, to correspond with Sonic Adventure. And I found, and they are usually pretty expensive now. Like if you find one, they're usually like $40-$50 because they're pretty big. And they are not very common. But I found I found Knuckles, who was my favorite, for $10 on Mercari. Not in great condition, but good enough to sit on a shelf. And so grabbed him. I got Bebop original Ninja Turtles action figure, Bebop and Rocksteady. Missing those for like the set that I want of Ninja Turtle stuff. I also, so there was this, I was just randomly searching for Earthworm Jim figures because I was like, oh, I'm buying figures. Like this is a series of figures that I want, like the original, like I think it was probably early 2000s. They came out with these like 6-inch tall figures that are pretty detailed, like really well done figures. And I think they only made like maybe a dozen different characters, maybe less. There's like 3 different gyms, and then like Psychro, Princess What's Her Name.
I had most of these.
Yeah, right? Like the big tall ones. Yeah, so did I, because I think that they came out.
Jim has like a head that ejects.
Yeah, a head that ejects. Then there's like...
Yep. Then there's like a scuba suit Jim.
There's like battle damage
Psychro,
Jim.
and one of the cats that Bob the Fish had,
and then
like
Peter Puppy in his monster form.
Yep.
And then there's like the rat, and there's like, I think it's hench rat or something like that.
Yeah, of course it is.
And I think that's it. I don't think
one of the cats, one of Bob the Killer Goldfish's cats,
yeah,
cat henchmen's.
I don't think Monkey Brain, Dr. Ape for a Brain or whatever, I don't think he had a figure, but he's the only major character.
Yeah, Professor Monkey for a head.
There he is. That's what it is.
And Monkey Professor for a head.
Yeah.
They swapped.
They do. They swap often. But anyway, this set come with 6 figures, which is someday the income I'd like to make. And like all the, I don't know if it's all the accessories, but it's a lot of accessories in really good condition. Opened. They're not complete in box or anything. And the original listing was $130. And it's like, these figures are about $20 a pop, except for standard Jim, who's like easily a $50 figure without the accessories. For some reason, Jim just goes, right? Like people want Jim. So I was like, well, at that price, like I can kind of get all these individually. So, and there's a couple here that I don't care about. So, I'm not going to bother. But I watched it. So, you hit like the watch button on eBay and you can heart it or whatever. And then the seller sends me an offer for $85. And at this point I'm like, okay, like after like shipping and everything, I'm going to spend $100. And Jim alone is like half that. So I was like, whatever. Like I just did a huge gig. I can splurge a little bit. So I got it. So that's going to be a box that I probably try to make a video about coming up, because that's make sure you hit Patreon if you want to watch it. It's crazy, dude. Like, I don't know why I bought, like, suddenly I want all these action figures, and I was never the guy who was like, I had to have all the like peripherals and everything. Like, I just want the games. But now here we are.
I bought toys too. So
yeah,
I bought that Lego set.
The Legos I'm not going to touch. That's way too expensive. I can't with the Lego until they come out with Donkey Kong, and then we're all in trouble.
I told you I'd buy that set. I actually did pick one up.
Yeah. I also got a Dreamcast magazine, the Power Stone issue, which I'm excited about. Yeah. That was pretty cheap. And then I got an awesome eBay snag, Billy Hatcher disc only for $25. Crazy good deal on that one, because the disc I think is like 45 or 50 alone. Complete, it's like 80 plus. So Really happy about that. I got Bloodwake from this little retro shop in San Marcos on the way to a wedding. And then I stopped over at my local, which is Game Over Video Games, and I got some Xbox stuff. We got Viva Pinata in really good shape. Viva Pinata. Dungeon Siege 3, because it was basically free. Mercenaries for the original Xbox, and the Dark Angel video game, which is based off of the TV series, yeah. Which starring Jessica Alba, who I was obsessed with when I was a preteen. So, or tween. So, yeah, but I don't know if the game's any good, but I had to have it. So here we are. It was cheap. And then also adding to my Crazy Taxi collection, got the GBA game for pretty cheap. So, which is honestly a surprisingly good port for being on the Game Boy Advance. Like it's behind the car driving around a 3D city, which I didn't expect that. I expected like some kind of like top-down GTA, original GTA thing, but it's not horrible. You know, it's definitely playable, and it definitely retains a lot of the like character of the original game. The music is unfortunate. It's kind of the same guitar riff over and over again, trying to sound like pop punk, but it is not bad. So that's the thing. On my mission to own every Crazy Taxi game. I think I'm just missing, as far as like different games go, I'm just missing an actual arcade cabinet and the PSP game. So
you have two?
I have 1, 2, and 3. I have 1 for GameCube, 2 for Dreamcast, 3 for Xbox was exclusive, and GBA, and then PSP. I think that's it for consoles.
Yep.
I am eventually going to go get like all of them. So like 1 for Dreamcast I don't have, and then I think 2 came out on GameCube, unless I'm horribly mistaken.
No, 2 is only Dreamcast.
Okay, so then I just need 1 on Dreamcast, only one and PS2, and then the PSP game. Yeah.
PS2's cheap though. You can
yeah. I mean, none of these games are expensive. I don't think I'll ever actually acquire an arcade cabinet. Like, I'm not planning on it. If somebody wants to donate one to me, I'll happily take it off your hands, but that's not something I'm prepared to spend like $1,000 on. So
probably more than that now.
I don't know. The racing ones are tough because like people don't have space for them, and they don't really fit well in like a home arcade. And actually, somebody in the Discord, I wish I could remember who you are. I'm sorry, whoever you were. We were talking about it, and he found the ambulance version of Crazy Taxi.
Yeah, the knockoff on GameCube.
No, it was Sega in the arcade.
Oh, is it Sega?
Yeah, I don't know that it ever came to console though. This version of it, at least. He found the cabinet for $750. Like the full driving cabinet. And I was kind of like, oh wow, like, if I had a spare $750, I might actually do that, but that's not an amount of money that I'm prepared to spend on that.
There's one on eBay going for $1,550.
Yeah. See, so it's not like crazy for an arcade machine. Well, that is actually pretty expensive, but
they made a stand-up one though. It's probably cheaper.
They did. They made a stand-up one. I don't remember that.
Well, I'm looking at an advertisement for it from Sega.
Well, there you go.
So I know they did.
Awesome. Yep. So that was my big haul this week. Lots of stuff. Also, was that this week or last week that we did Monkey Ball? Did Monkey Ball come out? Yeah, that was Tuesday of last week. So Monkey Ball on the Switch, which is awesome. Yeah, so that's everything. Only really played a little bit of Dread so far this week. Haven't played much. The Dan Cave is still under construction because I have no time. So we're just going to pray that somehow time happens. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for time, let's jump into some Prices Retro, guys. So if this is your first time playing Prices Retro, this is how we play. I'm going to list off 4 or 5 games, and you're going to guess how much each the games are worth in total. dollars and cents. Whoever, and we're all going to guess, and we're all going to have a list, and whoever guesses the closest to the actual price of the lot wins. And there is a ghost player who always guesses 300 now. And we have a guest list from our good friend Flightsy, who's got a 3-parter for us. This is the second part 2 of our 3-parter from Flightsy. So without further ado, John, why don't you go first?
All right. This is my last minute makeshift list of games. The first game on my list is Judge Dredd for the Game Boy Complete in box.
I love how we've decided that everything has to be complete in box now for these.
It's just easier to keep it all one way for me.
It's harder to guess.
The second game is Judge Dredd for the PS1 Complete. The third game is Judge Dredd for the Genesis Complete. And the fourth and final game is Judge Dredd versus Death for the GameCube Complete.
What is that? Goodness.
I'm not sure, but okay. I'm sure it's a Judge Dredd game.
Maybe it's a fighting game. Okay. I'll go first. My guess is 150.
I'm going to guess 250.
All right.
I'm going to guess 300. Ooh.
250. Okay. So the total of my lot is $120.47.
That would be me. Sweet. I don't know what these games are worth.
Really close if it was 147.
I know, right? Sweet. Looking up. All right. Give us those prices.
Okay. So Judge Dredd for the Game Boy Complete is $30.99. Judge Dredd for the PS1 Complete is $21.06. Judge Dredd for the Sega Genesis Complete is $23.42. And Judge Dredd versus Death for the GameCube Complete is $45.
I was pretty close on the GameCube one. I was like $5 off.
It's funny because I just looked over on my shelf and I remembered I had a copy of this game for the Super Nintendo. And then I just went down the list and I didn't even make it to the Super Nintendo version before I had 4 games.
That's awesome. That's good.
I only guessed high because I always get that Game Boy game, complete in box Game Boy games.
I know, man. They're tough.
That would throw 3 digits easily.
All right, Sam, why don't you go next?
Except when it's not. All right. Mm-hmm. I have an obvious theme, but also a not so obvious theme. See if you pick up on it. First game is Mega Man Battle Network for the Game Boy Advance, loose.
Mm-hmm.
Then Mega Man Battle Network 3 White for the Game Boy Advance, loose. Mega Man Battle Network 5 Double Team for the DS, loose. And Mega Man Battle Network 6 Thigh Beast Fowler for the Game Boy Advance, loose.
Mm-hmm.
So these are, of course, obviously all Mega Man Battle Network games. This is a repeat of my very first Prices Retro list.
On look at that!
13 of the podcast.
To see how Mega much Man. They went up.
Yeah. So spoilers: the price is different now.
Yeah, very much so. Because that was like a year ago.
You'll have to decide how different.
Okay, John, you go first.
I'm gonna go $300.
Yeesh. Okay, I'm gonna go 120.
Spooky.
I'm gonna go 120. John, you're ghosting us.
I am.
Yeah.
300 and 120. Okay. So interestingly enough, I also have your guesses on that episode here.
What?
Which I believe Dan had guessed 45 and John had guessed 65.
Oh, that tracks.
The total then was $143.52 back in December of 2020.
I did it again.
The total now is $199.42. So they've all gone up, but not by a whole lot. Battle Network 1 is $66.43. 3 White is $31.99. Double Team is $32.01, and 6 Falzer is $68.99.
Whew. Okay, guys, let's see if I can keep this up.
Hold on, what was that total again, Sam? Sorry.
The present day total is $199.42.
All right.
That was cool, Sam. It's good to look back and see where we were, what we were guessing, and what it's worth now. That's really neat. I like that. Okay, my turn. I've got a theme that is all Indiana Jones games. So I was reminded because I found my old PC copy of Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis by LucasArts. So can't play it, but I have the disc. So we have Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom for the NES, loose. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Ubisoft label for the NES, loose. Indiana Jones Greatest Adventures for the Super Nintendo, loose. And Indiana Jones Infernal Machine for the N64, complete in box for that one. So,
I have no idea. I'm just going to guess 200.
All right. I'm going to say, let's do 325.
All right. 325. Actual retail price is $460.36. $460.36. So the Temple of Doom for the NES is $10.37. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade Ubisoft label is $144. Now the non-Ubisoft label is hold on. Oops, had it. The non-Ubisoft label is $45. So quadruple or triple the price if you have one that says Ubisoft on it. Go figure that. And then Indiana Jones Greatest Adventures for the Super Nintendo, loose, is $29.99. And Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine for the N64, complete in box, is $275.96. That's a $90 cartridge by itself now. I don't know what happened because that didn't used to be very expensive, but here we are. I think John took that one.
I did.
I believe the Ghost hasn't won a round yet in this go, right?
No. Well, no, he hasn't.
Yeah. We have a guest list. We're going to pull that up real quick. Friggin' Ghost. All right. Season 2 premiere, list 2 of 3. The theme is In the Beginning, part 2 of 3. Any guesses on there's I'm just going to foreshadow you. There are 2 games. What do you guys think this theme is going to be? This is part of a Flightsy list, as we have to guess what this is going to be. I'm going to say 2 copies of Luigi's Mansion.
2 copies of Plok.
2 copies of Plok.
2 copies of Pikmin, one or the other.
I think Sam might be right. Okay, so game 1 is I Spy Spooky Mansion for the Wii, complete in box. Oh, what are you doing? And Sushi Go Round for the Wii, complete in box. I cannot nail you down, Flightsy. There's one thing we cannot do is nail you down.
No.
All right. All right, Sam, what's your guess?
$30.
All right. John, what about you?
I'm going to go 25.
All right. I'm going to go 10.
Okay.
And the Ghost goes 300.
300.
Maybe he'll win. All right. Actual retail price is $12.54. Yes. Dude, I totally sweeped this round. I Spy Spooky Mansion, $6.20. Sushi Go Round, $6.34. Theme explanation, wait until part 3. Winky face, winky face. He's building up to something, and so far, it's all weird. Mystery. It's weird stuff. In the first round, he had Pikmin, Rhythm Heaven, Indiana Jones, Cooking Mama, and Epic Mickey. And in this round, he has I Spy Spooky Mansion and Sushi Go Round. None of that tracks. So, I mean, the first round at least kind of made sense because it was like stuff that some of us like, or, I don't know. Maybe it's not. Cooking Mama. It's all spooky stuff and food? No. Because there's Rhythm Heaven. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. I don't know. Anyway. Flighty, thank you so much for your list. John, who won?
So,
it was me.
Your total was $111.49.
I won.
My total was $248.40. Sam's was $407.35. So that makes Dan the winner. Dan also took more rounds than everybody else. He took 3 and I took 1.
Double winner. That's right.
The Ghost took 0 rounds and didn't even... he came close. He was... Oh, no, wait. The Ghost beat Sam after that last round. That last bit put you over the Ghost. The Ghost was at 407.21. He beat you by, what was that, 14 cents.
Wow. Well, if you want to submit a list for Prices Retro, you can do so by either sending me a message in Twitter, DMing me on Twitter, or DMing me in the Discord. Anybody can submit a list, and I will give you instructions on how to submit that list, because it has to be done a very specific way so as not to be spoiled for me, who's reading the list. So you can also check out Flightsy put together a really great Prices Retro database. It's currently in the Discord. It will be going up on the website soon. But if you're in the Discord, you can go to the Prices Retro channel and check that out. It's got all kinds of cool stats about the games we played all through Season 1. I don't think he's through all the way Season 1 yet, but he's pretty close. So check that out. And thank you, Flightsy, for always being a bro. Let's now go into our show topic for this week. So this week I thought that it would be an interesting chat to go over some of our opinions and ethic quandaries about the topic of piracy, emulation, and repros. Recently, Kotaku ran an article all about how emulating Metroid Dread on the PC runs amazing in like 4K 60p. And there was a lot of hullabaloo about whether that was like ethical for them to do, to like basically encourage people to go pirate Metroid Dread to play it on with better stats instead of paying for it. And so there was a lot of controversy surrounding it. And then they even like amended the article saying, like that wasn't our intention, whatever. That's like the long and short of it. And there was opinions were thrown as far as from the east as to the west. Like the gray, the entire spectrum of gray was represented on Twitter as far as ethically, as far as that goes. So first of all, I want to ask you guys, where do you land on that specific issue of a game just comes out and either you buy the game but you don't own the console, which is something that people were saying like, well, I want to play Metroid Dread but I don't own a Switch, so I'll buy the game and then I will rip the ROM off the game and emulate it on the PC, which is like technically a backup of software that I bought, so it's not breaking any copyright laws, and Nintendo still got their money. But then a lot of people are saying like, well, yeah, like if you're being perfectly ethical about it, then that's fine. But how many people out there are just downloading a ROM of the game to play and not paying for it? And then some people are saying like, well, if I never intended on buying the game in my life, but now it's like available for free and I just want to try it, like I don't see a problem with downloading the ROM and trying it, you know. And if I get to a point where I'm like, oh, I really love this game, then I'll support Nintendo. That's like another side of it. And another side of it is like, it's never right to rip and download somebody else's like thing that they're selling. It's never right if it is readily available to purchase. Now, like I can walk into Target and go buy one, then it's morally unethical to get it for free any other way. It's basically stealing. And then other people are just like, you shouldn't be ripping ROMs and playing it on a PC at all, because that's not how Nintendo intended you to do it. So there are moral quandaries that just span the entire spectrum of morality as we know it, as far as this issue goes. So where do you guys land on this spectrum? We're not going to argue about it. We just want to know where you guys stand and what you think. I don't want like an ethics course. I just want to know where you guys stand. So, John, what do you think?
This is the kind of downloading of ROMs and emulation that I don't appreciate, because this game is readily available on a system that you can go out and buy and play it on. There's no reason for you to not do that. I mean, Nintendo put time and money into creating this. You might as well support them. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this isn't some obscure game that came out 20 years ago or 30 years ago that you literally cannot get a hold of. You know, Nintendo is not selling to you.
Yeah.
I mean, legally, it's not, you know, I don't think there's anything legal about this at the moment. So,
yeah,
I don't even know if there's a way to actually rip it off of the cartridge right now, is there? Like, unless you have a hacked Switch?
I'm not sure. Apparently there is. I don't have all that info.
Yeah, I have no idea how people would do that.
It's like, I don't think there's a device that you can just plug a Switch cartridge into. And
I mean, the easiest way to probably rig something up would be to hack a Switch.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because the Switch can read it.
Yep, and then you pull the ROM that way. But
yeah,
you've already went through the course of buying a Switch and hacking it to pull ROMs. You just go ahead and buy the game.
Right.
Well, essentially. Yeah. Oh, because I mean, that's like Dan said, somebody would, you know,
hot
say
take,
that I don't.
People only pirate games because they don't want to pay for them.
Exactly.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's one of the issues that people are saying. It's like it's really nice. Like, it's nice that the law allows you to make a backup of software that you buy. And like, even if, because like technically the distribution of a ROM is illegal because you're not, you know what I mean? Or I guess as long as not illegal, but it's not illegal. I think the phrase is unlawful.
It's still illegal.
Okay.
If you are distributing something and you are not licensed by the person who actually holds the rights, then that is a copyright violation.
Right. Yeah, it's an infringement.
Yeah.
And if you host a website where you can download something, or if you send a copy to anybody, just one person, that is a copyright violation.
Right.
Because you are making a copy and you do not have the right to do so.
Mm-hmm. And then the other
saying where somebody was going to actually buy the game, not own a Switch, and just rip it to their PC. I don't know how you could do that.
I don't know how they're doing it. Apparently it's possible. maybe they're lying.
No, you know, for older stuff, there are devices designed to do precisely that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that's the kind of thing I can get behind, because that does help with preservation purposes, and it is, you know, legally defensible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think even from an ethical standpoint, I think you have a responsibility to follow the laws that you're subject to. You don't follow laws only when it's convenient for you.
Yeah, you don't choose the ones you want to follow.
Right. Okay, cool. I'm definitely somewhere, and like, you know, I tend to be a pretty gray person as it is. I'm a middle child, so I'm a peacemaker. But I think that like if I was reading something about how like Nintendo can't like, and this may be wrong, but I was just reading about like one argument said that like, well, Nintendo can't technically force you to buy a Switch in order to play a piece of software. Like in order.
No,
like,
but they're also not responsible for if you can't play it on your hardware that you have that isn't a Switch.
Right. Exactly. So that's like not their responsibility. So like where like if I was able to purchase the game, Nintendo gets their money, and then I just want to play it on my PC, and there's a way to do that. That's where for me it's like, okay, that I can understand, but I think the problem is that if the ROM is readily available, like then that kind of overrides. Then it becomes like, well, sure, but who's actually going to follow that law, and who's going to just download it and play it, even if they don't?
Well, yeah,
and there's no way to know.
Part of the issue here is, and this even goes true for stuff like playing Game Boy games on an emulator.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can buy an original cartridge, and you can buy a Game Boy operator, and you can, you know, back up the ROM and then play it on the emulator of your choice.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is easier for somebody to just download a ROM from a website. Now, there are people who say, because it's easier, that's the way I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have the game. I just want to play it on an emulator and not on a Game Boy, so that I can have a big backlit screen. And, you know, whatever other features I want from it. And so I'm going to download it instead. The thing is, it's still very much illegal, because there's no way for you. There is no step in that process involving you proving that you own the game to download it. Anybody can download it. People who don't have the game are downloading it.
Right.
And the way most law is targeted, the person who gets punished the most is not the downloader. It's the person who uploads, who lets other people make as many copies as they want.
Right. Yeah.
Now, technically, both of you are breaking the law, but that's the person we're really concerned about. And you wouldn't be downloading unless somebody else was doing something that I think is very clearly not what we want to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Yeah. And I've always said in my, like, as far as my ethics go, that if a game, like my problem starts where if a game's readily available on store shelves, then there's no excuse for emulating. That's piracy. If there has not been efforts to distribute something like readily available, like Metroid Fusion, like go buy.
But again, it just comes down to price.
You know what I mean?
It comes down to price. Yeah, I mean, your options, if you want to play Metroid Fusion, you can buy an original cartridge. It's just expensive right now.
Reasonably.
And I'm not saying that doesn't suck, but like that's just it comes down to what price is acceptable for you. You know, the argument becomes, I don't want to pay that much.
That's true. Well, and
Metroid Fusion is playable on modern stuff, so like you could download a copy of it right now for like $8 on the Wii U.
Right. If you own a Wii U.
But most people forget the Wii U exists.
True.
And they don't want to buy a Wii U either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, this is something that's even more recently been readily available. So, like,
well, and that's the thing too that you have to think, and because people complain when somebody like Nintendo takes down a ROM site and they say, well, some of these games aren't even available. You're not losing sales. Well, yes, but also you don't know Nintendo's plans.
Yeah, exactly.
Was anybody saying that about, copies of, Majora's Mask because they weren't available? Well, Nintendo is making that available now. We don't know what Nintendo is protecting themselves for the future, even if those plans aren't finalized, even if they may never actually come true.
Yep, that's why they're updating their copyrights.
These days, it's much more obvious to the rights holders that old legacy IP, especially for something that's an ongoing series, has a lot of value. And they probably have some plans in the works for how they're going to keep it updated. It may not be on a timeline we like. It may not come in a form we like. But, stuff is getting re-released all the time. So if you just wait, it might become available.
Yeah. And I think Nintendo gets a lot of heat from its fan base for some dead IP. That we'd love to see a new F-Zero, and we'd love to see a new Golden Sun. And, recently they just popped WarioWare and Advance Wars back in, which is awesome. So I think
we have to begin a new Advance Wars.
Right. I think that Nintendo gets a lot more heat about this than other companies, partially because Nintendo has such a passionate fan base, but also because they're kind of the OGs of the current video game
have
landscape.
More dead IP because
there's
been around longer.
They've been around they've been making games for 40 years. So plus or give or take. So like they have all that history, and we all just grew up with it. Like Xbox, like a lot of the original Xbox library is available on your Series X. You can go download it or whatever.
PC even.
But they don't have as much history or the like ingrained rabid fan base that Nintendo has. I think like they do have a fan base, but I think Nintendo is unique in the like the passion for what they create.
They've got a lot of value in their IP too. Like
a lot.
They basically know that if they put out a game in a particular series, that they're going to get at least a certain amount of sales. Like it's almost guaranteed
based on console sales for sure.
Yep.
And so that kind of brings us to like a couple issues, like I mentioned earlier, which is piracy, emulation, and reproduction cartridges. And I think Sam, you're kind of as far as like where our like ethical compasses are, you're probably the most, I would say, I don't want to say conservative. You're probably the most like law abiding of the three of us.
Well, I mean, like I spent time doing that, and I just decided, you know what, I don't think this is really defensible. I felt my conscience pricked about it, so I said, okay, I'm not doing that. And there are, even if I have to jump through the hoops, I'll back up a cartridge myself because I think that is legally defensible. That hasn't been fully tested, but the fact that there are devices on the market that exist to do that, and that those are allowed to be sold, indicates that it's probably pretty defensible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think one thing that is interesting to consider is, okay, well, what if Nintendo sold, a ROM instead of just a cartridge? What if you could just buy the data? And, at that point, it's your responsibility. If it doesn't run on your emulator, well, you should have bought the Switch card. Is that something we could ever see? Because I go back to it used to be for a while when you bought a movie, a Blu-ray, you might get a digital code with it. You might have a digital copy that you could run on any media player, right? Games are not like that for whatever reason. Partly because it's harder to, there's more differences.
There's
different ways that they're created.
The existence of an emulator is something you can't just assume.
It requires
formats.
Yes, it requires,
and obviously Nintendo's not going to make one themselves.
It requires a lot more hardware compatibility than something like a movie. And also, films were coming out. Films were films long before interactive media was a thing. And so interactive media
is simpler too.
Yeah, interactive media came out at a time where it was it became more important to, for lack of a better term, monopolize your software to its platform.
Well, or you think about music, it is a very simple matter to rip an MP3 off of a CD.
Oh, yeah. It's like built-in software.
And people have been doing that since, not since CDs, but since MP3.
Very shortly
standard
after.
format.
Right.
And piracy was a huge problem for a time. Think about Napster. What happened there?
So video games have kind of like a history to look back on of other media and say like, well, we don't want that to be a thing. So now here we are in the computer age when it's a lot more possible to make that kind of thing happen, even with all the DRM in the world. So yeah, it's just a very interesting place to be. As far as I'm concerned, my ethics kind of lie with like things needing to be readily available. The laws are going to say what the laws say, and I'm not going to argue that. But how else, if I didn't already own a copy, how else was I ever going to play Gotcha Force or Cannon Spike or Panzer Dragoon Saga? Price, whether you like it or not, is a huge barrier. And so at that point, to me, preservation kind of outweighs the legality of it.
Well, do you mean preservation or do you mean accessibility? Because I think those are two different things.
Well,
preservation being that just somebody somewhere is going to still have it. I mean,
well, sure, but
emulation and piracy scene does benefit both. But
right.
Preservation being keeping it in its original form, which would not be a ROM, versus accessibility being me, a brand new fan who wasn't even around when this came out. I can actually play it and experience it.
I think accessibility and preservation, you're right, they are different things, but they are intertwined, because somebody somewhere preserving a thing doesn't mean I have any access or connection to it at all.
If they have a sealed game graded in a case, nobody's playing it.
Right, exactly.
It is preserved.
So preservation in the sense that it is accessible, because interactive media is designed to be interacted with, and you can't show a film you can't do a video game like you do a film, right? Like I can show an 8mm film in a theater and 2,000 people can watch it and experience it. You can't do that with a video game. Like you can watch somebody on Twitch, but that's not the same experience as playing Panzer Dragoon Saga. So that to me is where it breaks down, where if Sega does not make Panzer Dragoon readily available on their own, then I'm going to make it accessible for myself, for the sake of preservation and accessibility. Even though it's not its original form, it's still a form of preservation. That's where things break down for me. Now, were Panzer Dragoon Saga suddenly available on the eShop tomorrow, then my whole argument kind of goes out the window, because it's like, well, spend the $15 and get yourself Panzer Dragoon Saga, and hopefully they did a good job porting it. It's just that there are more games that will never be played again than there are remasters and ports and HD remakes.
And I think we always come down to the same, not necessarily argument, but the same
conclusion
point that conclusion. If the companies that created these games had the ability to make them more readily available, then a lot of this would go away. Like if you had a way to buy it and it was relatively reasonable, like it has to be more reasonable than $100,
right?
For a lot of these things. I mean, and Nintendo knows, how valuable their IP is, and that's why we do see quite a few things that get re-released over time. And they always sell. So I mean, more companies need to kind of latch onto that idea and try to go back through their, historic content to bring. There's so much profit there that's left on the table that they're not reaching after.
I'm really impressed with Konami lately.
Konami has been
at least
pretty good.
Been making an effort to make their beloved IP that they abandoned available. The Advanced Collection was a huge step.
And for to me, the only time I will emulate something is last ditch effort if I just have zero ability to get a hold of something. And 9 times out of 10, I'll end up buying it anyway at some point, just once I can get it. Because sometimes there are some games out there that's not even just a price. It's literally there's no way to get a hold of it. I mean, some of those are going away, but as we find things and create things, but I mean, before Scott Pilgrim was re-released, this is the one that always gets used, but there's no way to play it unless you bought somebody's astronomical PlayStation 3 that had it downloaded on there and it didn't get corrupted somehow.
The thing is, you can usually find it. The price may be ridiculous, but that's the thing.
That's the barrier, right? Yeah. It's still a barrier, even if it's just.
Well, at some point there won't be any more of those PlayStations left that have hard drive that's not corrupted or whatever. So if that game would have got the re-release that it did, there's no way to play it.
That's a good point too. Is that at some point when disc rot has eaten all the Dreamcast games,
there won't be any way to play them.
How else is there going to be to own an original copy? And so there's a lot of nuance to it, and lawfulness is objective, but there are situations, because the law was made by people, there are situations where overriding that law for a greater cause is appropriate.
Now, whatever you're
listen,
change the laws.
Whether video games, you feel video games are good enough or not, that's a personal choice. And so I want to make sure that I say, if you're listening to this, whatever your ethics are, not the legality of it, but whatever your ethics are, I'm not going to hound you about having ROMs for stuff. I'm not about that. I'm about positivity, and I'm not here to tell you to stop doing something. So
if I had to guess, I would say that I've probably been the laws that pertain to this just as much as the company that creates the software. Because technically they're supposed to use these IPs way more often than they do with their copyright that they have on them.
That's true. They
get away with a lot of things. I mean, money does that. I mean, there's plenty of things that are copyrighted out there.
I don't think the copyright laws are particularly well written.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Even if I do, my basis for not following a law is following a greater principle.
And exactly.
Yes.
The only greater principle here is I want this thing and I'm not willing to pay for it. Then that doesn't pass.
Yes, for sure. Exactly. And I think most people, Metroid Dread is not it's readily available. It's for sale from somebody who made it, and it's amazing. So you should support the company and also buy the amazing thing. So I don't think that there's a lot of people, or even I don't think that there's very many people that would say, well, no, I'm going to steal it because who cares?
There's not a single person that's playing this illegally that has any real reason to right now.
The other thing worth pointing out about copyright law is that all rights reserved is the default, but a rights holder can say, no, I'm actually going to, free this up. And there are games that's happened with. Mm-hmm. I believe Civilization 2 is a source available game.
Is it Creative Commons?
I would like to see more. Source available, meaning that after a certain point, the source code was made available to anybody on the internet to the public by the actual rights holder, not by somebody who just stole it and just said, here you go. I've made my money off this. I sold this many copies. Now you can do what you want with this, make mods for it. I'm done here. Mm-hmm. I would love to see more games do that. I don't think we're ever going to see that in the console space, but we have seen it on some in the PC space.
Yeah.
I would just like to see an end of life plan for a game laid out, that after this long, this is what we're going to do to preserve it. Because, a couple years after launch, when we're all playing the Switch 2, what's going to happen to Metroid Dread? They're probably not selling lots of copies, but what are they going to do to, preserve it for the future? I would like Nintendo to tell us that. It's not the sort of thing they probably will tell us.
No.
But that's life. It is their right to do so because they're the ones who made the game.
Exactly, yeah. And that would be ideal for them to respect their consumers in that way. But also, I'm pretty sure that they don't even know what their plan is at that early in the history of the game.
And part of the reason you don't tell people is because you don't want to have to take your word back.
You're setting expectations. Yeah,
impossible
exactly.
Or not so easy as you thought or whatever.
So this is a very nuanced issue that, people take very strong opinion with. And I think that we could all be a little more, even if you're not understanding, but just kind of be a little more like less self-righteous about what your opinion is, and let people enjoy things.
It would be nice if there was an easier way to say propose change for these laws that wouldn't just automatically get it swatted away by the companies that use them the most.
Well, there you go.
Money than you.
There you go.
You could propose all you want, but if it starts encroaching on their profits, they're definitely gonna say no.
Well,
sorry.
And part of the answer is to do some real analysis on how much it actually encroaches profits, because I think what we have seen is, especially with older games that have been re-released, like what we had on the Virtual Console, it was very easy to pirate those games, and people were paying for them willingly anyway.
Right.
If you're able to offer something that is above board at a low but reasonable, not even super low, but a reasonable price, people will still pay for it, especially if you can find ways to make it a better quality experience than some shady website download that might be a corrupted file and an emulator that might not run on your PC.
That's good. That's good. And there's kind of there are two sides to this, right? Where on one hand, I want there to be copyright laws, because if I create something, I want to protect it. I want to make sure that I'm able to receive the benefit of the thing that I created, financially or otherwise, and not somebody else who can just steal it. So that's on one hand, but then on the other hand, I also want copyright laws to be open enough so that they are not exploitable. So you have to find that happy medium, and so I think a lot of people feel like emulation and maybe piracy are kind of the answer to a corrupt legal system. So I can understand.
More of a timeline.
I don't agree, but I can understand the perspective.
If you haven't used a property in 20 years, it should fall under they should make you use it in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
We're never going to get a Mole Mania 2. That's gone. We'll never see Nintendo reuse that or in any form or fashion.
Yeah.
There's just all kinds of games out there that they created that, that it ended with that single game that they made, that never became a series.
The other thing, when it comes to games, though, copyright protects the characters, the specific assets, the names. Yep. It does not protect gameplay. That's why we see so many indie games that are pretty shameless, that makes it sound bad, but they wear their inspiration on their sleeve, like Wargroove with Advanced Wars.
Yeah, well, and in a lot of ways, Nintendo,
some of it is pretty shameless, though.
It is, but Nintendo even supports that. I mean, friggin' Axiom Verge 2, which is pretty much Metroid, was pushed on an Indie Direct, hard, But I think that it's the specific. I think that's because they probably know that you can't copyright gameplay, but don't actually put Metroid Samus in your game, or else that's a huge problem. So
you're also getting Nintendo as a game store owner and saying, "Hey, buy this game because when you do, I make money."
Well, there you go too. That's you're not wrong.
I get 30% of whatever you sell. So
I want to get the community in on this too. So I want you guys to go into Discord, go to the community couch, and I want to know what your thoughts are on this whole thing. So lay them out there, and you can tag me in the Discord, and we will chat about it, because I think that it's very interesting and nuanced. And as long as there are it's a safe. The Discord is a safe space. We're not gonna call anybody a bootlicker or anything. We're very much open to hearing all perspectives. So I want to hear what you guys have to say. Speaking of community couch, let's jump on over onto the community couch and see what you guys are talking about. Welcome to the community couch. The first thing we're going to chat about is we've got Retro Rewind game happening this month. Our spooky game is Demon's Crest for the Super Nintendo, available on Nintendo Switch Online. Play the game. Join us for a community-led podcast later this month. If we get enough reaction from the community, we will certainly do the community-led podcast. Also, make sure that you are signing up for Plok Talk, episode 2, coming Monday, October 25th at 9 p.m. CDT. The details on that will go up on the Discord shortly, so keep an eye out for that. Now we've got a series of questions that you, the community, have asked on the couch. First up, we've got Flightsy, and he says, I have a question I just really need the host to answer. I hope it's not too personal, but I think answering this question could give the Season 2 opener the spark it deserves. I forgot to read this question last week. I'm sorry. Anyway, it'll start a conversation that may stretch for the whole of RetroLogic future, and the question is, what would you do for a Klondike bar?
I guess it depends on the kind.
The chocolate,
just like double chocolate
Heath bar,
Reese's peanut butter. That's a good
one. I didn't know there were different kinds.
Cream. Mint
chocolate. You gotta catch up on your ice cream collection.
I pretty much only eat one kind. I pretty much only eat mint chocolate chips, so maybe I need to broaden my horizons a little bit.
I don't know. That's a pretty good one to
I like ice cream. I haven't had Klondike bar in a while.
Yeah. Well, what would you do for one, Sam?
Something relatively minimal, like go to the store and buy one.
Flip a coin to see if you get one or not.
Go to the store. I would drive my car to the store, exchange cash money for a Klondike bar.
I would wave down the ice cream truck that drives through my neighborhood and buy one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You guys still have ice cream trucks that drive through your place?
Not my neighborhood.
I still have like 2 or 3 of them.
There's one around here.
That's dangerous.
Hear the music.
I would eat way too much ice cream.
Never seen anybody buy anything from them.
I'm not going to say that I've ever bought anything from them, but they exist.
You should.
Their prices are pretty outrageous, to be honest. Yeah. Like, they're even worse than an ice cream parlor. Yeah. I'm the guy who gets like a half gallon at the grocery store. So
yeah, ditto. Anyway, so Eric Plunk, we've got a question from Eric Plunk in the Discord. He says, if you were limited to only collecting for one system, which would it be and why?
My first and only true love, the Super Nintendo.
Super Nintendo is a popular one. Whenever this question's asked, it is very high on the list. I guess it depends on the day you ask me, but right now I'm all about that GameCube. I'd be totally fine. Full library.
Am I allowed to include the virtual console?
Probably not. It's not the spirit of the question. It's that library's console's library.
I don't think that counts.
Well, no, I'm saying I think it would have to be the 3DS for me, but it would also be a bonus because you get the virtual console that's on there as well.
Yeah, well, you don't get the bonus. You just get.
I don't think the virtual console counts. You can get away with, the
re-releases and stuff, sure.
Remakes of Star Fox and Zelda.
I still think that the 3DS is a pretty solid.
It's not bad.
They did so many things on there that was good.
They really did. And it's portable.
I was always annoyed that the Virtual Console Super Nintendo games on there were new 3DS exclusive.
Yeah, tied to the new hardware.
Yeah, that was weird. Eric, what about you, man? Tell us. Okay, next up we've got Solo Something on the couch. He says, our community couch. So I think he had a typo. Anyway, the question is, would Ridley, Waluigi, Andross, Ganondorf, and Porky Minch? Who is Porky Minch?
From Earthbound.
Okay.
One of the main antagonists.
Yeah.
I just outed myself as not knowing anything about Earthbound. Those characters make a great Nintendo Legion of Doom. Who would be in charge?
I can't believe he didn't have King K. Rool on here.
I'm mad about it, honestly.
Or Bowser, yeah. I would have to say the Ganondorf has to be the leader, though. Because he's intelligent and very powerful.
He's pretty much...
Everyone else is just kind of goofy.
I think Ganondorf is... Because he's the most imposing of all of them, I would say.
He's a wizard, man.
Ridley's kind of just a mindless, beast dragon. Waluigi...
No, Ridley is...
No, Ridley's intelligent too, but...
Is he?
The robot Ridley in... is that Zero Mission?
Yeah.
There's a robot Ridley. He actually built that himself. Canonically.
Oh, no way. Man.
Yeah, and he talks.
I don't know, guys.
He does. He's a space pirate.
Apparently, I don't know anything about video games. So
Yar.
I'm just going to let y'all run the podcast from now.
but I still think Ganondorf would take him.
Yeah,
Ganondorf. I mean, maybe Andross.
I was going to say Andross is like a psychic disembodied
he could
floating
be
head.
the brains of the operation.
So I would say either...
But I feel like Ganondorf wouldn't take orders from him.
I would say
he's the Krang to Shredder.
It would be hard for Ganondorf to take orders, wouldn't it?
And I feel like Andross would be... He would work as the gang's mad scientist.
Yeah.
He'd be the Donatello.
Role. Yeah.
Or whatever.
I don't think Waluigi belongs there, though. I don't really think of him as a villain. He's a miscreant.
Lately, he's
not really a villain. He's more of a loser.
Yeah, why did he put Waluigi and not Bowser? That's so funny.
Is Wario even a villain anymore? He's just greedy. He's not trying to capture the princess.
He's like a neutral evil, or just kind of thank you, Solo Something. Great question. We've got the Ambassador asking a question. He says, my question for all retro collectors, how do you give your massive game library the time and attention it needs to play or enjoy it? Or do you have to just let things stay on a shelf for years? Well, Ambassador, what I'll say is that part of the fun of having a collection is getting to hang out next to the collection and look at the collection. That sometimes is as enjoyable as actually playing the games. Now, I collect things that I want to play, so I try to play as much as I can, but depending on the season of life that I'm in, the time isn't there. So absolutely things sit on the shelf, undoubtedly. But there's kind of just a joy in holding something or looking at something that I love that kind of makes it all worth it. What about you guys?
Just one game at a time, I guess.
Yeah, it's as soon as I buy a game or play a game, I buy two more, so it's a never ending.
Yeah, Sabe's probably he does the best job at playing all the games that he gets for the most part.
Yeah, that's true.
You've been getting behind here lately, though.
Especially since I make a point of trying to beat every game I get, which is far less the case. Usually if I get something, I don't just test it. I'll play the first couple levels or something, so I can at least say I play everything I have, but beat everything I have is something I work on and have gotten further and further behind on.
Yeah, I try to do that too, even just to pop it in and make sure it works and all that. Sometimes I'll play it for a little while if I have some time. But yeah, time in this current season of life is in pretty short supply. So there's a lot that just kind of sits that I just like to have. I don't feel bad about it, though.
Availability.
Yeah.
If something comes up in current conversation, I can go find it and play it. I mean, there are definitely some times where I forget that I even have it. And then somebody brings it up and I'm like, oh yeah, I have that game.
You're definitely the librarian of the group, John, for sure. The archivist. Yeah. Really great question, Ambassador. I want to know what the rest of the community has to say about that. Spider Shan, rounding us out on the community couch, says, quick question for the couch. When you were growing up, did you read the game manual before popping in your new game? Open parentheses. I miss game manuals. Close parentheses.
Limited run.
Man, that was such part of the experience, right? Like, I just remember driving home from Toys R Us with Mario Kart 64 and just digesting that manual on the way home.
Of course, you got to pop it. You got to read the manual.
Could not wait to get home and play it, but I was like, I'm in the car, so I got to do something. You open the manual up.
I just read manuals like all the time because I was only allowed to play video games for about like an hour a day maximum. Mm-hmm. So, but they didn't say anything about reading the manuals. So I just
there you go. Yeah,
that was my way of getting a little more. When you were building your reading skills, time.
There you go.
Yeah. What about whatever? Like, how many disappointments did you have where you go to rent a game and it didn't have the manual, or they tried to like print one in black and white and you couldn't even read it? It was so dark.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal. That's hard though, as a rental place, to like make sure you get the manual back. I got to imagine.
Like, you can't. Yeah, people just keep them.
I remember Hollywood Video did a smart thing where they printed their own box art, and on the back they like made their own like quick tutorial, like what the controls do, and like, you know, some like basic like how to play the game. Really smart. Thought that was really smart when I worked there.
I think a lot of rental manuals just got forgotten. Like, you just didn't remember to put it back in, and it stayed.
Exactly.
And sometimes you remember to take it back later with a different game. But yeah, I know it's happened to me before.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, oh man, I have this Terminator 2 manual from Super Nintendo. I'll take it back with Bomberman.
These days, though, much love for like finding a game manual for a retro game and like looking at it, reading it, learning something new about the game you love and the plot, or something that's not explained in the game. That's always really cool.
I read the manual for Super Mario 1.
Yeah, big time.
Dude, the manual for Odama is incredible. That is one you do not want to miss.
There you go.
There is like this whole like backstory on like the secret history of the way of Nintendo and what the Odama's origins are, and all this like
I'm gonna have to read
crypto history stuff.
Amazing.
Great.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with us on the couch. If you want to submit a topic or a question to us, you can do so via Twitter at RetroLogic Games, or join the Discord. And I'm about to tell you how to do that if you're interested. But before we do the outro, I want to thank my co-hosts, John and Sam, for always hanging out with me here at RetroLogic, for kicking it and being cool dudes and chatting it up. And I want to thank you, listener, for listening and hanging. We are proudly part of the Nintendo Dads family of podcasts. If you like what you hear, you can check me out on Twitter and Instagram at RetroLogic Games. You're also welcome to jump into our friendly and 100% non-toxic Discord community. The link to that is in my Twitter bio. And you can find everything, including the Discord link, the store, the blog, a couple of resources up there for like if you need box art printed or something like that. We've got a whole resource page up there now. All of that is at the website retrologic.games. So go check it out. And we will see you guys on the flip side. Later.
Bye now.
I'm keeping track of time now.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't bake in a break anywhere.
That's all right. We're just rolling
We're just rolling. Do y'all need to take a break for any reason?
We have no need of breaks here.
No. Unless you want to take a break to play some Metroid.
Breaks are for the weak. I will take a break after we're done.
I must break you.
A Metroid break. A break droid. Break droid dread.